And welcome back into Matt's Sports Talk. This episode, I'm going to be sharing in more specific detail, breaking down the Crossroads League Women's Playoff standing, or where the standings currently are, and breaking down in more specific detail exactly the playoff matchups. And so without further ado, let's dive into that. So first, starting on the bottom, of course, the Taylor Trojans eliminated from the playoff race. They're 1-16. The Grace College Lady Lancers officially were eliminated from playoff contention after their loss last night to number 9 St. Francis. They are 3-14, and despite the loss for the Goshen College Lady Maple Leafs, they secured a playoff spot last night. They are 5-12. Bethel and Mount Vernon tied at 6-11. Mount Vernon, though, is still ahead of Bethel because of more league road wins. Huntington 9-8, Spring Arbor 11-6, Marion and St. Francis 14-3, and IWU 16-1. So what does all of that mean? Well, for the Wildcats, I briefly mentioned in my full women's recap video just a little bit ago that with the win last night, the Lady Wildcats have secured the number 1 seed in the Crossroads League tournament. They clinch home court advantage throughout. They also clinched the first automatic bid into the NAIA National Tournament. Now, we still don't know if IWU will be a host site or not. We will officially know that next Thursday. But if IWU is selected to host, they would be hosting games on Friday, March 14th and Saturday, March 15th. Now, and then, of course, for IWU, they still have one regular season game left. That is against Marion, number 12 Marion, coming up on Saturday. Now, that game does not matter to the Wildcats in terms of playoff seeding, but obviously you would want to play extremely well, and you obviously would want to get a win on Senior Day as well, and to build momentum going into the first matchup at home next Wednesday night, which right now would be a rematch with the Lady Maple Leafs. Now, for St. Francis and Marion, they're tied at 14-3. So, where does that tie in terms of the games on Saturday? Well, St. Francis is at home against Spring Arbor. Now, the first time those two teams met in Michigan, Spring Arbor came away with a 12-point upset win, 67-55. For Marion, they're also at 14-3. They got swept by St. Francis, for Marion, they lost that heartbreaker and an all-time classic finish last Saturday by 1 point. So, what does that mean for all the matchups Saturday? Well, if St. Francis and Marion both win on Saturday, they both would finish 15-3 in the conference. St. Francis would be ahead of Marion because of the head-to-head tiebreaker with sweeping the Knights both times in the regular season. If they both lose on Saturday, meaning Marion losing to IWU and St. Francis losing to Spring Arbor, it would also stay the same, with St. Francis still being ahead of Marion because of the head-to-head tiebreaker. And in that scenario, both those two teams would finish 14-4. Now, what's the scenario for Marion to get to the number 2 seed? Marion would have to beat Indiana Wesleyan and have St. Francis lose to Spring Arbor for Marion to get the number 2 seed. For St. Francis, on the other hand, for them to fall to the number 3 seed, they would obviously have to lose to Spring Arbor, and Marion would have to beat IWU for St. Francis to fall to the 3. For St. Francis to clinch the 2, they would clinch the number 2 seed with a win or loss, coupled by a win or loss by Marion, like I alluded to a few minutes ago. So those scenarios, it's pretty open for those two teams on who would be the 2 seed, who would be the 3 seed. The only scenario that Marion would be the 2 seed is if they beat IWU and St. Francis loses to Spring Arbor. That's the only scenario for Marion to be the 2 seed. So going now down to Spring Arbor, who currently sits 4th. Spring Arbor cannot gain any more playoff seeding. They cannot lose any more playoff seeding as far as that goes, meaning that Spring Arbor has officially clinched that number 4 seed and the final spot for hosting a home playoff game next Wednesday night. So that's obviously with Spring Arbor, their game on Saturday doesn't matter because they can't gain anything and they can't lose anything. However, if you're head coach John Williams, you obviously would want to upset the number 9 team in the country again to give you more momentum going into the playoff match at home next Wednesday night. Now, for Huntington, who's currently sitting at 9-8, the Lady Foresters cannot get any higher in the playoff seeding. They cannot get any lower as far as that goes. So their home game against Goshen on Saturday for them, that also doesn't matter. But obviously, if you're head coach Darby Maggard, you would want to win on your home floor on senior day, honoring Ruby Bolin and Gabby Melby. But Huntington would not, even if you won or lost, it would not matter for your playoff seeding. You would still be that number 5 seed no matter what, and you would be traveling to Spring Arbor coming up next Wednesday night. And if you won that matchup and the Wildcats of Indiana Wesleyan won, then the winner of Huntington Spring Arbor would go to IWU on Saturday, March 1st, and could very well be Spring Arbor for the second straight year in a row, going to IWU in the second round, or as red hot as what the Lady Foresters have been playing as of late, they could be the ones potentially getting a third chance at Indiana Wesleyan. They always say 3 times is the charm. So now obviously for head coach Darby Maggard, excuse me, you would love to get a third chance at IWU, especially because you lost that heartbreaker to them in Platt Arena back on November 20th, that tough 2-point loss. And then, of course, you lost to them by 19 at IWU back on January 25th. Now, obviously, for Huntington, that game is a little bit skewed because they did not have Kendall Yoakum for that one. So, obviously, you know, that game really you can't really count. But, you know, for the Lady Foresters, they would love nothing more than to play IWU in the Crossroads League semifinals. And then, of course, now another thing for Huntington is, in order for them to get the second automatic bid to nationals, them being officially a number 5 seed, they would have to run the whole entire tournament to get an automatic bid, meaning that they would have to beat, excuse me, that they would have to beat Spring Arbor in Michigan next Wednesday night. Then they would have to stun Indiana Wesleyan on March 1st, and then they would have to stun either St. Francis or Marion for the Crossroads League Tournament Championship coming up on Monday night, March 3rd, or Tuesday night, March 4th, excuse me. So obviously there is a lot on the line in terms of that. Now, looking at Mount Vernon and Bethel, they both are 6-11. Now, if Huntington beats Goshen on Saturday, then with both a Mount Vernon and Bethel win, I think Bethel would move ahead of Mount Vernon because Bethel swept Goshen. Mount Vernon and Goshen split, so that common opponent tiebreaker, I believe, would favor the Lady Pilots if both Bethel and Mount Vernon won on Saturday, or if they both lost. Now for Goshen, they can get no higher than the 8 seed, but only on one scenario. The only way the Lady Maple Leafs get out of that number 8 spot is if they beat Huntington on Saturday, have Mount Vernon lose at home to Grace, and have Bethel beat Taylor in Mishawaka. That is the only scenario where Goshen would avoid being that number 8 seed and would also avoid having to go face IWU for the second time in a week and a half, or in 1 week, excuse me, next Wednesday night. So obviously there's a lot on the line for the women's side as well. So that is your updated women's playoff picture right now. And obviously, you know, things could still change, that's for sure, coming up on after all the games on Saturday. So I hope that more specific breakdown really helped you. And if it did, please like, comment, or subscribe. Any of those options help me out tremendously. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.